In my experience, we're discussing Sri Guru and his grace. And in Mexico, we have a saying, cada maestrito con su librito. It means every teacher has his book, and no two teachers are really exactly the same. And I do a lot of reflection on teaching, the art of teaching, how to be a good teacher, because that's what I do. And I work with children and I work with older people, and everyone has the same thing in common in that nobody likes to be taught anything. Anytime you try to teach any child anything, you'll find they'll say, no, 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 I can do it. Leave me alone. Don't take that out of my hand. If they have something in their hand that they're manipulating, and you go, oh, let me show you how to do that. No, 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 no. Don't touch me. And that's an interesting aspect of human life. Nobody really likes being taught, but at some point, as Srila Sri Ramakrishna says, to err is human, but we want perfection, and that implies a teacher somewhere. It implies the guru. And so a guru or a teacher is someone who, out of compassion for the ignorant, if you like, uh, tries to enlighten another person. It's a natural human function. All mothers are teachers. So they see the little boy and they know, well, he needs to walk. So let's teach him to walk. But how did you learn to walk? You can't remember. How does it go? You put the left foot out, you put the right foot back. You know, how do we learn to walk? Or does daddy just set you up on your legs and say, okay, come here? And then you fall flat on your nose? Well, that's one style of teaching, isn't it? When I was to learn how to swim, my father took me out with a friend in a rowboat on a lake. And then his friend threw me into the lake and said, okay, now swim. That doesn't work with everybody, see? So different teachers have a different approach, a different style. And that's kind of what we're considering when we look at Sri Guru and his grace. Who is the guru? What are the powers of the guru? What does the guru teach? How does he teach that? See? I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called The Karate Kid, but the teacher in that is a Japanese man called Mr. Miyagi. And the boy comes and says, I'd like to learn karate. And so Mr. Miyagi says, all right, paint the fence. And the boy's painting the fence. And he says, okay, on the other side of the fence, use your left hand, go up and down like this. And then the next day, he says, well, will you teach me karate today? And he says, no, today we're going to sand the deck. And he gives him sandpaper and tells him, sand the deck, the floor, the wooden floor. He says, now use your right hand. And later he says, well, when are you going to teach me karate? And he says, well, you know this and you know that. I'm teaching you karate. So his methodology is experiential. So he's teaching without teaching. And some teachers or gurus, they're like that. Sometimes they give you a task. Sometimes they tell you, well, follow my example. Sometimes they put you in a group and give you a problem and say, work it out. So there's all different kinds of teachers and gurus. And Srila Guru Maharaj, his style was different from others in that some gurus, they're great acharyas and they sit on a big throne, and you can't approach them because they have senior followers who will keep you away and say, no, Guru Maharaj can't talk to you now. He's busy. Oh, what's he busy doing? I can't tell you. It's a secret. You can come to the big meeting. And such a great acharya, he may have so much pomp and circumstance that your best strategy is to work with your god brothers. But when I met Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I found him to be very unassuming. He wasn't like that at all. He was interested in, okay, what's your name? Why are you here? Um, do you have any education? He wanted to know that. He liked it that his disciples had some kind of education, that he found out that you'd been to the college. They're like, okay, that's good. Not necessarily a qualification, as you know, we'll see as we look into his teachings. But he was cordial. He wanted to know, do you have a mosquito net? Are you eating all right? Are you sick? So-and-so is sick. Well, you know, try giving him some coconut water that may soothe his stomach. He was a very practical man. Someone would come to him and say, last night I dreamed there was a ghost standing on my chest. And Guru Maharaj would say, well, when you woke up with your hands like this, perhaps the pressure from your hands on your chest gave you that sort of an impression. But he did not look for a mystical meaning. He looked for a practical explanation. There must be some very simple practical explanation for that. So he would open a meeting by asking people, what's the news? Like Babar the elephant, what's your story? What's happening in Europe? What's going on in Ireland? How's the weather? He was always inquisitive like that. He was interested in the world. He didn't have it wasn't that he had this sort of set dogma that he was determined to inflict upon you and inject on you. And yet, he was in a deep touch with a higher reality. He understood the truth. He was a Vedanti, you know, he could, a seer of Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevya, Upadekshanti Tegan, Tatvidas Tattvadarsanam. He was a Tattvadarshi. He saw the truth. He was in contact with the truth. So it wasn't his urge to push that onto you, but if you were in his proximity, you could absorb a certain amount of his vision. So I like the idea of saying hello to people before we get started, because that was the way that my teacher taught. So we're looking at the first chapter in the book. This is the first edition of Sri Guru and His Grace. It says, surrender to Sri Guru. Even great scholars are perplexed in understanding what is good and what is bad. Also, everything that Srila Guru Maharaj said is very, very pregnant with meaning. But he's actually remembering something from Bhagavad Gita, where it says, Kim karma, kim karmeti, kavayo, pyatra mohita. Mohita, they're bewildered. Kavayo, the great thinkers, they're trying to understand what is good, what is bad. They offer the so-called trolley problem, where there's a train that's on a track, and then there's a baby on the track. And then you're standing next to a switch. Now you can switch the track away from the baby, but then there's 2 two babies on the other track, something like this, the trolley problem. So, or there's an old lady, there's variations. Maybe there's 10 people on the first track, and there's an old lady on the second track. And you think, well, the old lady, she's lived a productive life. If I switch the train will kill her and 10 people will survive. So isn't ethics and moral judgment about making the right choice and promoting the greater good? So what's the greater good? An old lady dies or 10 young people die? What's the value of a life? And ethical professors will explore these questions. So the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Kim karma, kim akarmeti, kaviyo pyatramohitaha. The kavis, the thinkers, they're bewildered. What's the right answer here? See? If you could go back in time and kill Hitler, would you do it? Well, maybe you save 6 million Jews. But say by going back in time, you change circumstances in such a way that your mother was never born. You know, ethical thinkers, they like questions like this. So what is karma? What's good karma? What's bad karma? How do I do good karma? And how do I avoid bad karma? Of course, the question that Krishna's working on is Arjuna's problem, which is, okay, to save my family, to save Hastinapur and future generations from the evil of Duryodhan, I have to kill my guru. I have to kill my grandfather. How can I do that? I don't want to kill my grandfather. Isn't that bad karma, Krishna? What's karma here? What's dharma? And this is the real heart of the Bhagavad Gita, trying to understand these problems. So before telling Arjuna, well, you should surrender and accept some spiritual advice from a qualified guru or spiritual master, he explains to Arjuna, you need this kind of advice because you can't understand what karma is. Even the great thinkers, the kavis, they're bewildered by that. Even great scholars fail to understand their real necessity. Srila Sridhar Maharaj knows this because he's known great scholars. He knew Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and all his competition, and not only spiritual theistic competition, but he knew the other professors in the great universities of Calcutta, where he went to school. And, he read the law. He heard different ethical problems. You can see scholars, they can't puzzle this out. This material world is a jungle of perplexities where the soul has accepted so many different kinds of bodies and different types of consciousness. And here he sort of enters into the idea of the subjective evolution of consciousness, because it's not true that one species becomes another species. One species a coyote never becomes a dog. It's a fanciful idea to believe that that's true. The coyote is always the coyote. The dog is always a dog. But there's an infinite variety of coyotes and dogs and different animals in between. And over millions and millions of years, that variety may sort itself out. But the point is, a particular body evolves around a particular kind of consciousness. In the laws of Manu, it is written, Jalaja Navalakshani, Stavara Lakshavinshati, Krimayo Rudra Sankyaka, Pakshinam Dashalakshanam, Tringsha Lakshani Pashavaha, Chatur Lakshani Manusha. There are 900,000 kinds of aquatics, 2 million kinds of trees and plants, 1,100,000 kinds of insects and reptiles. Srila Prabhupada, he once said, there are 1,100,000 different species of insects, and most of them live in Bengal. Snakes and reptiles, too. 1 million kinds of birds, 3 million kinds of four-legged beasts, and 400,000 kinds of human species. That's interesting, too, because they want to tell us, well, Neanderthal man, he's ceased to exist. But look around and you can see some people who kind of resemble Neanderthal man. They're still with us, you know? Sometimes I'm not a great artist, but I like to paint. I don't like to paint people in my paintings because they interest me. Uh, and sometimes I'll paint a painting. There's Mexico. There's a pretty church, and there's some people walking around. And then I look at it critically and think, that's terrible. Nobody looks like that. You know, how did I make that face? And then I go to the supermarket, and as I'm walking to the market, I see people who look like the guys in my painting. I go, wow, it's true. There are 400,000 different species of human beings. Manu says that the trees are in such a hopeless position as a result of their own karma. So you can also find in Greek mythology, which is based on Hindu mythology, stories of, uh, especially in Ovid's Metamorphoses, there's stories of people who are turned into trees as a result of their particular obsession. Narcissus was turned into a flower. I think it's Phoebe, but I can't remember, or Daphne. Maybe it was Daphne. She chased after Apollo, and Apollo changed her into a tree. So the Bhagavatam also records this. What kind of a consciousness do you need to have to become a tree? Some sort of very slow consciousness. Trees are in a hopeless position as a result of their own karma. Their feelings of pain and pleasure are similar to ours. So the French philosopher and mathematician Descartes, he said that animals are machines. They don't feel any pleasure or any pain. But this has been refuted. We know that animals experience pain. All kinds of animals. Their feelings of pain and pleasure are similar to ours. There's a great book. It's called The Secret Life of Plants. And later, Stevie Wonder, the American musician, he made a record album called The Secret Life of Plants, and he used the devotees chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, on his album. And in that, I read that book, The Secret Life of Plants, and it mentions a pharmacist, the man who began Bengal Chemical. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Jagadish Chandra Bose. Jagadish Chandra Bose. He was known to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada wrote letters to Bengal Chemical when he was establishing his line of Vedic pharmaceuticals and medicines. So Jagadish Chandra Bose was a Bengali scientist, and he was interested in consciousness and its problems. And he did experiments on plants. And one of his experiments, he connected electrodes to plants and then cut them. And he found that the plants would scream. They would record on an oscilloscope or whatever instrument he used at the time, uh, discomfort and pain. And then he connected a series of plants, and he noticed that when he walked into the room, all the plants reacted as if they knew this is the man who cut our friend. So what Srila Sridhar Maharaj is saying here about how trees feel pain, it's not fanciful. Their feelings of pain and pleasure are similar to ours. Their souls are not of a lower standard. Still, they're in such a deplorable position as a result of their own karma. They have no one to blame but themselves. This is the state of affairs in this external world. So he's explaining, you're surrounded by karma. You're involved in karma. Even plants suffering the result of their karma. So how do we reverse that situation? We need help from a higher authority, from a higher guide. And that help comes in the form of Gurudev. We're living in an environment which is afflicted by serious misconception, misunderstanding, misguidance, and misbehavior. How are we to ascertain what is good and what is bad? What we should aspire after and what we should reject? Innumerable alternatives have thronged in a crowd coming to influence us. And when this area, covered by illusion and influenced by misunderstanding, is filled with such diversity, how can we hope to know the infinite spiritual world of Vaikuntha? With what attitude should we approach that realm which is transcendental, beyond the realm of the senses and mind? Adhokshaja. We must accept any way and any alliance that will help us gain entrance into that realm. We shall try to have even the slightest connection with that perfect goal of our inner aspiration. So we're often asked, well, then who is a guru? Who can guide you? But Srila Sridhar Maharaj is pointing out, anyone who can help you further on the path can be seen as your spiritual teacher. There may be gradations, just as there's 400,000 different species of human beings. There may be gradations in the guru concept as well. Someone can take you by the hand and lead you further down the path than where you are today. Of course, you want the highest and the best, but that's not always available to us. There's a saying that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. See, if you can't see and nobody can see anything, but there's somebody over there who's maybe myopic, maybe they only have 50% of vision in one eye, but you take help where you can get it. See, later on, if your sight has been corrected and you can see a lot better, well, maybe there's someone who has the use of a microscope and a telescope and perfect vision and maps and satellite GPS and all that. But in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. We must accept any way and any alliance that will help us gain entrance into that realm. So this answers again the question of whether a Westerner, a fallen, disgusting, low-born, dirty Westerner can be a guru. Well, Srila Prabhupada did not have a problem with that. He wanted all his disciples to become gurus and educate the whole world. It didn't work out exactly the way he had planned, but he had no objection to that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Shudra Kene Nyai. A tattva, Krishna Tattva Veda, say Guru Hoy. Doesn't matter if someone has rejected all association with women or if he's a Shudra. He can be Guru if he understands Krishna Tattva. So our important point is try to understand Krishna Tattva. We should try to have even the slightest connection with that perfect goal of our innate aspiration. We are helpless. We are hopeless in the midst of disappointment. We are in extreme danger. We rely on our free will, our capacity of selection for our own good, but it is too minute and helpless to guide us. What danger we're in. All around us are witnesses to this danger. How important is real guru who can guide us to our real welfare? We are in the midst of different forces that are drawing us, attracting us toward different directions. So proper guidance is the most valuable and the most important thing for all of us. If we accept direction from anywhere and everywhere, we will be misguided. Therefore, we must be careful to get proper direction. So this is a balancing point. He just said, well, anyway, any alliance is good. But then he says, on the other hand, be sure you get some kind of proper guidance. If you're lost in some strange city and don't speak the language, and you want to find your way to the post office or the bank, you try to ask somebody who knows. Men are famous for saying, oh, yeah, it's over there, without knowing anything. So you try to find someone who looks like, all right, this person, he's a policeman. He knows where the bank is, maybe. You try to find someone who has an understanding of Krishna Tattva. This direction has been given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidib pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So he says, if you want vidhi, you want knowledge, you have to approach a self-realized soul, a tattvadarshi. To understand transcendental knowledge, you must approach a self-realized soul, accept him as your spiritual master, and take initiation from him. Inquire submissively and render service unto him. Self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you, for they have seen the truth. Here Krishna gives a standard by which we can understand what is what from a bona fide source. The standard to measure truth or untruth must not come from a vitiated, vulnerable plane, but from a real plane. And to realize that, we must have these three qualifications. Pranipat, well, that means surrender. Pranipat, it's like the word prapana, prapana jivanamritam, surrender. Pariprashna, that means proper questioning. See, we don't ask the guru. Well, in the Bhagavatam, it says that King Ugrasen had 10,000 bodyguards. How are we to understand why King Ugrasen had 10,000 bodyguards? The guru is not an encyclopedia. You have Google for that. Now we have Chat GPT. See, you don't have to ask him impertinent questions that have no value for your spiritual life. Pariprashna means pertinent questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What can I do How can I live? My life is upside down and crazy and difficult. How can I come closer to God? This is the guru's position. See, as a teacher, there's many different things that uh, you can study. I could try to help you learn something, but that's not interesting as far as your personal self-interest, your spiritual life. If I teach you English or Spanish, that has no bearing on your spiritual life. That may be something that's useful for you in making a living, but it has nothing to say about your divine life. So Srila Sri Ramar, at one point, he likes the idea that maybe you tried to study something because it shows you're an inquisitive person. But he's not interested in all these books. He's telling you it's a waste of your time. I know, I studied. Don't read all those books. It won't help you. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, uh, I'm a burro, I'm a mudha, a mule, because I carry on my back so many heavy tomes, volumes of books and law books and things that I studied. It's a waste of your time. Don't go there. So it's strange in a way that a certain amount of erudition is needed to make some progress in spiritual life, I think. But in another way, it's like an ornament, an alankara. Uh, you see a beautiful woman, she'll always be adorned with beautiful jewels and gold, right? But a beautiful woman who's dead and laid out on a cold white marble table may look beautiful with those jewels, but they serve no purpose. So much erudition, in a sense, it's like ornaments on a dead body. Uh, this shloka from the Gita talks about vidi, tad vidi pranipatena. This is he's telling Arjuna, you want to understand knowledge? You want to know what karma is and what karma is not. Yeah, it's a difficult question, isn't it? The thinkers tried to work it out, but they couldn't. If you want to know the difference between uh, knowledge and ignorance, well, find a deep thinker, a tattvadarshi, someone who knows the truth. Huh? But real knowledge is more than that. Real knowledge is Krishna Tattva. So the Bhagavatam says, Vedanti Tattva Vidas Tattvam Yaj Ganam Advayam. And there's Advaya's name in there. Advaya, it means oneness, right? But we're not interested in the oneness of the Mayavadis who say that everything is dark and illusion except for the light. They say uh, Advaya means it's all one. No, we're interested in that one Krishna. Varanti tattva vidas tattvam yaj ganam advayam. That sort of divine knowledge, which is unitary, but it's divided into three important divisions: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. So there's no difference between Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. It's Advai. And yet, Bhagavan is superior knowledge. It's a higher truth. I found this quote from William Blake that I liked. William Blake was an English madman who wrote strange poetry filled with spirituality, morality, the relationship between the human and divine experience. He says, God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day. So those who are illuminated already, they like the human form of divinity, Bhagavat. Whereas those who are living in darkness, they aspire to light. I was reaching for this shloka the other day, asato ma sadgamaya. Don't stay in the darkness. Don't stay in ignorance. Come to knowledge. Don't stay in darkness. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Come to the light. Mritir ma amritam gamaya. Don't stay in death. Come to immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti. But William Blake is saying, that's nice. For those poor souls who dwell in light, God appears, and God is light. But if you dwell in realms of day, he does a human form display. So Krishna Tattva, this is a higher, deeper kind of knowledge. This is a higher knowledge than ordinary vidhi. Involves bhakti. So the appropriate real guru, he can draw you into the world of Krishna bhakti through his association, his presence, his teaching, his example. And you can get there through submission, appropriate question, and service. Pranipat, Pariprashna, and Seva. Panipat means we must surrender to this knowledge, for it is not an ordinary class of knowledge, which as a subject we can make our object. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj is always interested in this dichotomy between subject and object. So he's saying, don't think that you're the center. Don't think that you're the subject and you will make Krishna your object and you will eat that. You will absorb that. No, you have it backwards. He's the subject. You must surrender to this knowledge. It is not an ordinary class of knowledge, which as a subject we can make our object. It is super subjective. We may be the subjects in the mundane world. So in the world of matter, this objective world of physics, you're the subject, right? But we will have to become objects to be handled by the super knowledge of that plane. This is very nicely understood in Vedantic thought as Purush and Prakriti. See, you are the Purush in the material world, and the material world is Prakriti. But in a higher sense, Krishna is Purush, and everything else is his Prakriti. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj tries to put this in English by saying, well, Krishna Tattva, that's super subjective. It's a higher kind of subject. Yeah, you can be the subject here. But we will have to become objects to be handled by the super knowledge of that plane. Pranipat means that one approaches a spiritual master saying, I'm finished with the experience of this external world. I have no charm for anything in this plane where I have already traveled. Now I'm offering myself exclusively at your altar. I want to have your grace. In this mood, we should approach that higher knowledge. Pariprashna means honest, sincere inquiry. We must inquire not with a tendency of discussion or in the mood of argument, but all our efforts should be concentrated in a positive line to understand the truth without the spirit of doubt and suspicion. There was a devotee in Navadvip who he was an initiated devotee. I won't say his name, but he was always interested in Jesus Christ. So when he was sitting with Guru Maharaj, he would say, well, so Maharaj, when did Jesus Christ come to India? Can you tell me about that? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj would be, this is not really something I want to discuss so much. Okay, well, is Jesus Christ the Father, the Son, or the Holy Ghost? And, Srila Sridhar Maharaj would again say, look, he said, perhaps Jesus, if you look at his teachings, you can see he was teaching something. Perhaps in the longevity of his career, in the sojourn of his avatar, he may have encountered something like Krishna consciousness. We don't rule that out. But if you analyze his thought, it seems he's talking about Brahman. Maybe a little Paramatma. There might be a little bhakti there. After all, in Christmas, you have the sonhood of God, right? People like the baby Jesus. But, I'm not getting any Vaishnava inspiration there. So when we published, it might be in this book, when we published this book, Goswami Raj changed his name. Some people in the book are student, but I think he put Christian for that particular devotee. No, that's in the Search for Sri Krishna. And so when we went to the publisher and printed that book, first we printed a small pamphlet, 32 pages, and it did well. So we went back to the printer and we said, we'd like to reprint that. And the printer said, no, I'm sorry, we can't print that. We said, well, why not? And well, my wife and I, we read what you said about Jesus in there, and, in good conscience, I can't reprint that. So we walked out into the parking lot, and I turned to Goswami Maharaj. This is very bad news. He was a good printer. He did a good job, and he was inexpensive too. And Goswami Maharaj laughed. He said, no, you have this all wrong. What do you mean? He said, I'm happy. This is exactly the response we want. We want people to read that and go, oh no. So I thought, okay, Goswami Maharaj knows more about this than I do, so I accept that. But impertinent questions. So this person would pester Srila Sridhar Maharaj with the same question again and again and again. Yes, but isn't Jesus, isn't he really a Vaishnava? Isn't Jesus a devotee of Krishna? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he had his own criteria. He was a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was not in the market for synergistic religion. Is that correct? Synergism, I can't remember. There's a word like that. Synchronistic, I think. Syncretic, that's it. Syncretic, it means you try to make a synthesis between two or three different religions. Like Sikhism is like that. They wanted to link Islam and Hinduism. And the result was the Muslims rejected that, and the Hindus as well. So syncretic religion. Akbar, the emperor of India, he tried also with something like that. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj was not a party to syncretic religion, because if we make common cause with the Christians and we say, oh yeah, Christ is beautiful, we love Christ, he was a Vaishnava. Then what is the point of a book like this or anything Krishna conscious, Radha Krishna? Why do that? You've already got Jesus. And that's what the Christian preachers tried to preach in India for hundreds of years. And it's interesting if you think about it, because all kinds of Christian preachers, from the Jesuits to the Catholics to the Baptists, all of them, they put intense effort, millions of dollars, thousands of recruits into trying to proselytize the people of India. But it was unsuccessful. So you have to think why. You know, the Christians have a good argument. Why couldn't they convert the people of India? And some of the Scottish Presbyterians who taught at Calcutta University taught Srila Sridhar Maharaj when he read for the law. They were preachers. But what would happen would be something like this. The Christian preachers would say, well, how can you believe in all this superstitious rot about 10,000 different gods? Come on. What is all this mythology? And then the astute teachers of Krishna consciousness, or Hinduism even, Shivaism, Vedanta, they would say, okay, look, let's put the mythology over there. Every society has mythology. Did Ugrasen really have 10,000 bodyguards? Fine. Okay, maybe there's some element there which is hyperbole. But let's look at your Bible. You've got Jonah and the whale. Okay. Is it possible for a cetacean, a whale, to devour a man? No. They're vegetarians. They eat krill. Krill are microorganisms. They have a big filter in the front of their mouth that prevents anything big entering. The story of Jonah and the whale is an obvious invention or fantasy. What about Adam and Eve? You're telling me that every human being on the planet descended from one man and one woman? That's a terrible incestuous situation. We would all have little pigtails, not in our hair. So what about Noah and the ark? You're telling me they put the lion and the lamb on the same boat, and two of them. And then there was this giant flood where there was no land anywhere in the world that was accessible. So they were at sea for 40 days and 40 nights, or however long it was. And then they opened up the ark, and out came two bears and two deer and two lions and two lambs. Really? Now, either you believe in miracles, and in a sense, all life is miraculous, and either you believe that there are mystical elements that cannot be explained with your science, or we just throw all that mythology out the window. We don't believe in any of it. Okay? Just throw your Bible away. But what do you have left? Where's your philosophy? What does the Bible say about the soul? Where do you describe the Atma? What's the explanation of the Paramatma? What is consciousness? Does consciousness exist? What is the relationship, if any, between what you call matter and what you call consciousness? Now, in the Vedanta, we have Purush and Prakriti. I can explain that to you. And then the Scottish Presbyterians would be like, wow, oh my God, that's heavy. Where can I read more about this? The Catholics, there's one famous I don't know if he's Catholic or Protestant, I can't remember, theologian named Rudolf Otto. And at the beginning of the 20th century, uh, atheists and philosophers like Nietzsche had already shredded so many theistic conceptions and the mythologies of the Bible. And so Rudolf Otto came along and he studied the teachings of Ramanuja. And he found, wow, this is a really good explanation of reality, of divinity, of consciousness. And of course, this is known in India. And that's why the Catholics couldn't make a dent. The Baptists, they go there and say, okay, none of this mythology is real. And so the people of India would say, all right, well, what do you have? Okay, we have a virgin birth. Hmm, okay. And then the boy is taken across the river. Ah, the Jamuna. No, 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 no. This is not the story of Krishna. We like Krishna. We're going to stick with Krishna. You know, maybe you find this mythological, but we don't. We see this as the highest expression of the highest ideal, which is bhakti and divine love. So these sorts of doubts and suspicions and impertinent questions are not the sort of thing to put to the guru. Finally, there is sevaya, or service. This is the most important thing. We're trying to gain this knowledge, not so we can get the help of that plane, not so we can utilize that experience for living here. Rather, we must give our pledge to serve that plane. So this is another big difference. In most religions in the world, we have problems, and we like that there's a higher power that can sort out our problems. But does God back Manchester United or Arsenal? You know, does God back, you know, Barcelona or Liverpool? And the people, when they win the football game, they say, God is on our side. See, he helped us. But the other team was also praying. So when it comes down to the hospital, and you're in the hospital and your family members are there and they're praying for you and they say, come on, we want Joe to pull through. Come on, God, help us out. And he doesn't make it. And the next day, you carry his ashes to the graveyard. Does that mean that God doesn't exist or he doesn't help you? Srila Sri Ramar says, try to make peace with God. Try to understand every wave is favorable. There's a reason for everything. The soul is eternal. Uncle Joe, he moved on. His consciousness is occupying itself in a different plane of consciousness at this present moment. The bones and flesh and blood, they went back to the earth. But every wave is favorable. So don't try to make the higher plane serve you. You try to serve the higher plane. Andre Segovia, great guitarist, he was asked, what's the secret in becoming a brilliant musician? And he said, well, don't make the music serve you. There was a famous trumpet player, Chet Baker, and he would play music so he could buy drugs. But that's not the way to become a great musician. You know, you can't make the music serve you. You have to serve the music. So don't make God your servant unless you're on very, very intimate terms with him. Mother Yashoda tells Krishna, go bring me some yogurt. Okay. But she bought him with her love. You can't do that. Or maybe you can. But don't try. Finally, there's sevaya, or service. And I'll finish this talk. I don't want to bore everybody. Almost an hour. Finally, there's sevaya, or service. This is the most important thing. We're trying to gain this knowledge not so we can get the help of that plane, not so we can utilize that experience for living here, Rather, we must give our pledge to serve that plane. Only with this attitude may we approach that plane of knowledge. We shall serve that higher knowledge. We don't try to make it serve us. Otherwise, we won't be allowed to enter into that domain. Absolute knowledge won't come to serve this lower plane. We must offer ourselves to be used by him, not that we shall try to use him in our own selfish way to satisfy our lower purpose. So that's my reading. I'm doing some business. So, any questions?
Thank you very much, Maya. It was very nice. Thank you.
Well, that's my New Year's talk on Sri Guru and his grace. So, the Guru is not always with us. We consider Gurudev in different aspects. There's his Vani and his Vapu, his personal presence and his teaching. But there's also his example. There's also his style. So these are all different things we can consider. How do we serve Gurudev? If we're fortunate enough to have his personal presence, we can cook rice. We can prepare his favorite food. We can listen or run some errands. And you don't need any more than that. You don't need to consider all this theology. My particular service to Srila Sridhar Maharaj was protect and defend his point of view and publish these books. So when I can do that, I'm very happy. But most people are not really interested in hearing that. We prefer some lighter touch. See, we figure out, well, okay, what was Govinda Maharaj's favorite tea? I'll drink that. And that way I'm serving Gurudev. Maybe. Oh, by the way, Adwai, thank you again for the nice tea. If anybody wants to help me out, you can do what Adwai did and send me a nice box of tea. I really enjoyed it. And he has my address and my mailing details. It's very difficult to get good tea in Mexico because here in Mexico, they believe that tea should have some kind of a purpose. So this is good for cough. This is good for sore throat. This is good for aching joints. But black tea, they don't understand. They want to know, well, why would you drink that? What's it good for? I don't know. It's tea. Anyway, so thank you all again. Happy New Year to everyone. The New Year is a time for considering what went wrong and how to make it right and how we can move forward with a new spirit of adventure and optimism and try to stay friends. Avoid insulting your friends. It's not a good path. Avoid insulting the other devotees. Yeah, maybe they're wrong. I saw on the internet the other day, what do I do if I disagree with another devotee? And I thought about Ugrasen and Vasudev. Ugrasen was Devaki's father, Ugrasen's father-in-law. And I'm sorry, Vasudev's father-in-law, right? So Vasudev did not, it says in the Bhagavatam, he did not really get along with his father-in-law. And that's to be expected. That's the way father-in-laws are. They want to protect their daughters, right? But then again, it made me think, here's these two great devotees. Vasudeva is the father of God. He's the father of Krishna. And
Right.
Ugrasen is his grandfather. So the grandfather and the father of God, they don't get along. And that was of great help to me because there were some devotees in the temple who I just didn't really like, you know. And then somebody asked Srila Sridhar Maharaj, how is it possible that devotees can argue all the time? And he said, can you accommodate the Mahabharata? The Mahabharata is all about devotees. They all love Krishna, but they're constantly in conflict. So try to love your fellow devotee. Hare Krishna. That's it. Stay in touch. Say hello. Send me a message now and then. I don't know if Suvasini wants to do this again. I don't want to talk too long because then she'll, block me. Say, no more.
No,
Thank
we're
you.
happy to have you, Maya. Very happy.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry,
Hare
can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear you fine.
Okay, we've just had a power cut, so
Oh,
I don't know. Okay, so I'll say Hare Krishna and go because I might be gone at any second from the internet.
okay. All right.
Happy New Year. Thank you,
Haribol.
Mahayogi. Very
All right.
enjoyable. Thank you.
Go to Haribol. I'm leaving. Hare Krishna. Bye-bye.
Blessings to your wife. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bye, Suvasini. Hare Krishna.